My name is Carolyn Pepion Doran, and my grandmother was Blackfeet Indian, and that's my heritage. Blackfeet Indian from northern Montana, right near the Canadian border. My grandmother was the biggest influence in my life. She was Blackfeet Indian, born in a lodge in 1884, and she told us many stories as we were growing up. I'm talking about my two sisters and I, and just really taught us about what it was like during that time. I remember her trying to teach us to bead, and we were very impatient little girls, and we didn't want to learn. We would go berry picking, and she would show us all the places where things had happened, and she had the history of all the Blackfeet and where certain battles took place, or where you go to pick berries. Everything. She could say, oh, on that hill you go to have a vision, or this is where my naming ceremony took place. Just in passing, we would be driving and she would just have these stories for us. And she always said to me, remember your heritage. And it's kind of funny because I found out later, after I was an adult, that she never said that to my two sisters. She only said that to me. So I don't know why that was. But we would spend summers with her. Our family was broken up when we were young, and we were adopted out. There were 5 children, and the 3 older girls, which myself was included, went with a family in Denver, and my younger brother and sister went with another family. It was very, very traumatic. And probably the good thing about that was we were able to keep in touch with my grandmother, and we were able to go back and see her every summer, sometimes spring breaks, and so that was a nice, it just helped us to feel connected. The family that we went to live with, the woman was very anti-Native American, and we heard a lot of very bad, pretty brutal things growing up about Native Americans, and so I always had a sense of shame about that when I was in Denver and I was in this certain life in Denver, you act a certain way, and you don't tell people. And then I would go and be with my grandmother, and we would go to Indian days, and we would go visit the elders, and my grandmother would speak with them in the native language and tell us stories. And so there was always this kind of weird trying to balance thing, which I think that's something I've struggled with probably my whole life. And what I've realized recently is that I probably, and just these are terms that I've learned through studying art, is that I'm probably a hybrid identity, where I grew up with 2 identities. And somehow putting a name on that feels better to me. And as I've become an adult, I've really embraced my heritage more and don't feel the shame at all. And I remember going back to a family reunion a number of years ago and just feeling really good about that, and glad and proud of where I came from. My work is about the land and where I fit in with the land, and also it's a recording of my journey of my life. I use a lot of aerial photography in my work and satellite photos because I like adding the present technology to something bland that has been there forever and overlaying those two things. I also work a lot with a grid and kind of to show that there's this modern technology that shows people a place of where they are within the land, but it's not visible. And it's kind of, for me, it's there, and yet also the Native Americans did the same thing. In the Blackfeet tribe, you would have certain markers of where things were, and use those to find your way or find certain things and to find your place. And so it's always thinking about place. And this piece is called Sweetgrass Hills, and it's sacred hills to the Blackfeet. And I remember my grandmother pointing them out to us. There are 3 hills, and she would talk about them and tell us stories about them. And so I also always want to add in this sacred element in my work. And I like to add the shapes. I've got shapes in here and colors. I generally use kind of an earth palette, but with these pieces of the grid popping out because they're in our lives. It's there and it's in our lives. And in a way, it kind of speaks of my identity by saying I have this connection to my heritage, and yet I live in this world today, and then trying to fit those two together. I think that probably, besides my grandmother, the fact that I came from a long line of artists has influenced me, and I have used that to integrate into my work. And I sometimes will just sort of talk to the people that came before me, and just kind of ask for guidance and help me in my artwork and what I'm trying to say. Because I want to say something that everyone can maybe take something from, or look at one of my pieces and feel a sense of recognition for a place they've been or a feeling that they've had. And so I think that's really what I'm trying to do there.